We climbing, baby, we climbing. How long is it gonna take for us to climb up the altitude? Let's calculate that thing. Boom! A major part of every flight plan that you put together is going to be determining how long is it gonna take you to get to your desired cruise altitude. What's going to be the time, the distance, and of course the fuel burn for you to get there. We're going to calculate that thing out nice and simple. Let's get into that thing. Let's go! Hey, to calculate how long it's going to take you to get the altitude, you're going to follow a very similar method that we use to, of course, calculate the landing performance, takeoff performance, as well as the cruise performance. We followed a lot of the performance charts that are located inside of your pilot's operating handbook. If you want a review of all of those videos, there are videos on this channel, reviewing them in detail, showing you how to easily calculate them and some of the secrets that you need to know when looking at those performance charts inside your pilot's operating handbook. Link at the end of this video, where them links be at for to review all those videos. Let's get into this time, fuel, and distance to climb. So thinking about this, you're thinking to yourself, let's put ourselves an example. Let's just say, of course, we're going to take off at 1,000, you know what I mean, 1,000 bands, and we want to cruise up to an altitude of 7,000 feet. So we're going from 1,000 to up to 7,000, and the current temperature is 23 degrees Celsius. So we got our information as part of our flight plan. How can we calculate this? How can we utilize this and figure out how long it's going to take us to get there, how much fuel we're going to burn, and the distance that's going to be traveled just to get to that altitude of 7,000 feet. 7 bands. Hey, boom. So check it. You know the vibe. The first order of business, you got to find the pilot's operating handbook and flip that thing to, of course, the performance section, usually section 5, and find your chart where you having your time, fuel, and distance of climb. It's usually located right after it shows you the best rate of climb chart. We already calculated that. You know what that is, but find that time, fuel, and distance of climb so you can get that thing started. The example that we're going to use, let's just say our pressure altitude. We've done all our calculations. If you want a review of how to calculate pressure altitude and weight and balance and all the fun things that you need to punch these numbers in, there's videos on this page. Just search for it nice and easily. There'll also be a link at the end of this video. Boom! Where them links be at, directing you towards that. Hey, so let's just say we have that pressure altitude take off about 1,000, and then we're going to go up to a cruising altitude of about 7 bands. We're going to be 7,000 feet in the air. That's where we want to cruise to. And then our temperature, of course, is 23 degrees Celsius. That's going to be key, understanding what those temperatures are and then how to be able to adjust our numbers for that. So when we start looking at our chart, the two columns that we're going to be concerned with the most are where we're starting off, our takeoff, that elevation, and then of course the altitude that we're cruising to. And all we're going to simply do is take the difference between those two to do a lot of our calculations. So let's just say we start off, of course, left hand side, we know what our weight and balance is, and then we got our pressure altitude of about 1,000. Boom, okay, and it tells us that the temperature is 13 degrees Celsius, or that's what it should be for standard temperature. Remember, standard temperature at sea level, 15 degrees Celsius. Every 1,000 feet you go up, you of course lose 2 degrees of Celsius. So it should be 13 degrees temperature at 1,000. But we're taking off from 1,000, and it's telling us in the weather report that the temperature is 23 degrees Celsius. So first of all, what does that even mean? That means that we're in a non-standard temperature kind of situation, and we're 10 degrees above standard temperature. That is going to be key as we get further and further into our calculations. So we're going to make note of that. Okay, we're 10 degrees above our standard temperature of what we should be at 1,000 feet. Then we're going to keep going across. We're going to understand, of course, what our climb speed should be, what of course our feet per minute, and what we're going to be climbing at in terms of that. Understanding that climb, that best rate of climb that we're looking for there, all good things. Then we get to the time, if we were to start at sea level, how long it would take us to get to 1,000 feet, about a minute, and then we still understand the fuel burn, 0.2, and then 2 for the distance in terms of how far we actually travel, 2 nautical miles until we get to that 1,000 feet. Then we say, okay, those are our numbers for where we're starting from, the actual takeoff. And here's where we want to go, where we want to cruise to. 7 bands up, and we're reading those same numbers going all the way across. So when we get ready to calculate, we're looking for 3 things: the time, the fuel, and the distance. So let's just say we start off with the time. Let's go all the way over on 7,000 and look at that time column. It say that if we were to start at, of course, sea level, it would take us 13 minutes to get to 7 bands. Okay. But we're not starting at sea level. We're going to start at 1,000. So we got to subtract, of course, that 1 minute from that, because it takes us a minute to just get to 1,000, but we're already starting there. So take that 13 and subtract just that 1 minute from it, and boom, nice and easy, you have 12 minutes. It's going to take us 12 minutes to go from 1,000 to, of course, 7,000. That's just the starting point. We're going to have to continue to massage these numbers, but let's just start with 12 minutes on that thing. Then we do the same thing for fuel. All we're doing is taking the difference between these numbers, where we start from versus where we want to be. 1.7 on the fuel, we started at 0.2, so what does that equal? 1.5. Nice and simple. And then distance, same exact thing. Of course, it tells us 14 nautical miles minus the 2 where we started from. What are we left with? 12 nautical miles. So this 12 minutes, 1.5 burn in terms of the actual fuel, and then 12 nautical miles distance, that's a basic starting point from where we are. But after you finish that, you're not done yet, because now you got to read those notations on that same exact chart: time, fuel, distance. Those notations is going to be noted at the top, and it's going to tell you a variety of different things. One of the things it's going to tell you is how much fuel you should add to your calculations based on how long it's going to take you to start up the plane, how much fuel you're going to burn to start up the plane, the taxi, the takeoff, etc. It may tell you a number like, oh, add 0.8 gallons to your fuel. Remember, these are performance charts that were written way back when the plane first came off the assembly line. So more than likely, it's going to take a little bit more than whatever value they tell you there. Always estimate a conservatively higher value than was suggested in the notation or those charts for those very reasons. These are older planes that are decades old. So you want to compensate for that and always overestimate instead of taking it verbatim for what it is, and you definitely don't want to underestimate. So if it tells you 0.8, then maybe just flat out round it up, add 1, of course, official gallon to what you got. So you start off at 1.5 gallons, you added that 1 gallon, and that brings you to a nice place there, of course, say 2.5 gallons overall. So that's one of the notations that you're going to have to make. Boom! But you should keep reading those notations, because they're going to tell you more and more stuff that you got to calculate. And that's one of the things you want to make note about all these performance charts, whether it's landing, a takeoff chart, a climb, a time, fuel, distance, cruise chart. Always read the notations, because it's going to tell you how you should adjust your numbers based on certain things. If you keep reading those notations on this very chart inside of your POH, it's going to tell you something along the lines of, for every 10 degrees above standard temperature, increase everything, your time, fuel, distance, by 10%. And we know that we are, of course, 10 degrees above standard temperature, because our standard temperature should be 13 at 1,000, but we're at 23 degrees Celsius in the forecast. So we got to adjust that. So when we take these numbers we already have situated here and we add 10%, we're going to go from 12 minutes to 13 minutes. We're going to go from 2.5 to 3 gallons, and we're going to go from 12 nautical miles to 13 minutes. And these can be our official numbers right here. 13 minutes in terms of the time, 3 gallons burn on the fuel, and 13 minutes in terms of the 13 nautical miles in terms of the distance traveled. That's a nice, simple way that you can get to these numbers. And again, always remember to overestimate versus leaving anything on the table, or underestimating, or taking things verbatim for a plane that may be 20, 30, 40 years old. Hey, don't forget to like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel. I am Donovan Batiste, and this is Leadership Mindset, a place where you can come for free and fun videos about everything that you need to know for you to become a pilot. Because I want you to feel what pilots all over the world feel when we swinging and banging that thing. Hey, love you one time. Subscribe to this channel.